Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy podcast. Each week, we expose the faulty foundational mindsets of the past and rebuild a newer, stronger foundation essential in creating your meaningful legacy. We've got a lot of work to do, so let's get started. As much as you like this podcast, I'm certain that you're going to love the book that I just released on Amazon, Fuel Your Legacy, The 9 Pillars to Build a Meaningful Legacy. I wrote this to share with you the experiences that I had while I was identifying my identity, how I began to create my meaningful legacy, and how you can create yours. You're going to find this book on Kindle, Amazon, and as always on my website, samknickerbocker.com. And it's Darrin Jacklin, correct?
Correct. Yeah, either that or Sir Darrin Jacklin, either one.
Okay, sounds good. Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy show. And today we have another incredible guest all the way from Vancouver, Canada, Sir Darrin Jacklin. And I'm excited. Honestly, we were just talking before this. He's accomplished way too much for me to say everything. But he's also overcome an incredible amount of adversity, create multiple different companies that have been highly successful. And he's also a philanthropist. Once he's created that wealth, how does he turn around and go and help more people accomplish more things in their life and serve? And that's one of the reasons I invited him on here is I really want to help people create the service mindset and realize that, yeah, you can get all the money in the world, all the success, but at the end of the day, what's the impact that you're leaving and what's the legacy that you're leaving? And although those financial things can support you in doing that and definitely make your life easier in the pursuit of that, if you don't have something in mind bigger than yourself, it's kind of pointless. So anyways, I'm super excited to hear from you, Darrin, and take it away. Tell us your story, your backstory, and then how you got to where you are today.
Well, great. Thanks so much. I'm grateful to be here and be in service and make a contribution. So maybe to get some context to your listeners, I'll share 3 parts: the backstory, the come up story, and the success story. My backstory is really quite unique. I grew up in a small town in Swift Current, Saskatchewan, Canada, less than 20,000 people in population. Grew up in a middle income family. In grade 1, I failed grade 1 of public school. Was then misdiagnosed with a learning disability and a reading disability. And the school system decided to put me into what we call special education. So from grade 1 all the way through to grade 12, I was in special education. So never went to regular public normal school. And so to me, a lot of trauma from that, right? And a lot of negative self-talk and mind chatter at a very young age. And so when I was 7 years old, because I thought I was stupid, never good enough, never smart enough, never amount to much at a young age, I decided to create my first business called Rent a Kid. And I would go out and cut grass, shovel snow, deliver newspapers. And something I discovered at a very young age is that we do not have money problems in life. There is no lack of money on this planet. There's a lack of thinking and solving problems. If you want to make more money in the next few days, just look around your neighborhood and think, how can I go and serve my neighbors? How can I serve my community? How can I serve people that live in my residential block? So that's what I did as a kid with my Rent a Kid business. I'd go out and knock on doors and do odd jobs in my neighborhood. By the time I was 9 years of age, I was making sometimes more money in a month than my school teachers were. Now, I didn't have overhead expenses because I was living at home under my parents' roof. But as a young kid, 9 years of age, it was never money for me. What I wanted was freedom. I wanted options because as a young kid, being mislabeled, misdiagnosed, I realized I didn't want to be told what to do. So I became, as we know today, is what we call an entrepreneur. So going through junior high and high school, I really struggled with my self-identity, my confidence. In fact, in my book, Until I Become, I share a story where I was so insecure talking to girls that I would take 10 Canadian pennies and put them secretly in my left pocket. And every time I talk to a girl and say good morning or good afternoon or hello or hi, how are you? Just to say something out my mouth, because it was really scary for me, I would then secretly transfer a penny from my left pocket to my right pocket. And the game I would play every day was to transfer 10 pennies from my left pocket to my right pocket, consistently do that. And that would build my self-confidence in my belief in myself and something I can win at. So junior high, I struggled. And then I got into grade 12 and 11. And when I was in grade 11, I was taken out of class one day by a guidance counselor and a school teacher. And they said, Darrin, based on your academic marks, you're probably not going to graduate maybe from high school. You're a D student. You're never going to go to college, never university. Those options are not on the table for you. So what do you plan to do if you graduate from grade 12? Because we got to move you out of the system, right? The desks are only so big. and you're growing. So you're going to graduate from grade 12. And so I said, I want to travel around the world. I want to build companies. I want to build financial wealth, and I want to make a big difference in the world. Well, they both looked at each other and said, come on, Darrin, you're never going to go to university or college. That's not going to happen. You're going to get a minimum wage job or work for a union or work for the government or farming or agriculture, do some kind in the trades industry, but you're not going to become a business owner. You're not going to build companies and be an investor. That's just, those cards are not on the table. And that really affected my self-confidence and my direction and my focus as a young man, because these are my heroes. These are my mentors. These are my role models. These are my school teachers, people that believed, that I wanted them to believe in me, that shaped my and designed my future. So I did graduate from grade 12, left high school, had no direction, no focus, no purpose. So what did I do? I felt I might as well just kill myself. So I did multiple suicide attempts to end my life by driving my car at 85 miles an hour or 140 kilometers an hour towards a telephone pole. And I practiced this over and over and over again till my final attempt, I got scared. I said, I can't do this. I got chicken. I said, I can't do this. So I drove my car to a 24-hour telephone crisis line that dealt with suicide prevention, a suicide crisis line, rang their doorbell on their door, and I turned myself in to this counselor. And I said, listen, I'm trying to commit suicide. I need some help. I'm going to kill myself. And so they brought me in and started offering me some counseling services. This is back in the early 1990s. And then the counselor said, listen, I want you to go meet somebody by the name of Dale Carnegie. I didn't know who Dale Carnegie was. So I went to this hotel, and I was walking around the hotel lobby looking for Dale Carnegie. And one of the hotel staff said, can I help you, sir? I said, yeah, I'm looking to meet Dale Carnegie. Oh, he's upstairs in the conference center. Okay. So I took the elevator up to the conference center, walking around the conference center of this hotel. And I said, I'm here to meet Dale Carnegie. Oh, just right into this conference room. So I go in this conference room. There's all these chairs set up theater style. And it was a Dale Carnegie training program. I didn't know it was an introduction, a 12-week program they were offering. And this is a kind of a commercial, an introduction to the Dale Carnegie training program. So I was a little confused, but went in there and thought, okay, I don't really kind of understand this. I thought I was going to meet a guy, not a program that somebody was offering. I just didn't get all the communication. So I sat in this program. I thought, wow, I want some of this Dale Carnegie training. I want what these people are selling here, because this can have an impact on my life. So I signed up, took this 12-week program called the Dale Carnegie Training Program on public speaking, leadership, and communication. And Dale Carnegie wrote a best-selling book that's been around for decades called How to Win Friends and Influence People. And that program, that course and that book is a game changer for me. I highly recommend it. So I met some people in Dale Carnegie training that then decided, hey, Darrin, why don't we go to a Toastmasters meeting? Well, I didn't know what Toastmasters was. So a lady brought me over to a Toastmasters meeting, and I was a guest at that Toastmasters meeting. And the first time they went around, they asked all the guests to introduce themselves. Well, I was so scared. My knees were shaking underneath the table. I was so scared. My face was red. I was sweating. And I was just very out of my comfort zone. And when they asked me to introduce myself, I forgot my name. Even though I had a name badge on, I forgot my name. I was so scared. So I looked down and I had to remember what my name was. I said my name, and a guy named Frank Kitchen was 94 years of age in the Toastmasters meeting. He goes, that's why you need Toastmasters. You're going to have a breakthrough and it's going to transform your life. So I signed up, and that program, I ended up meeting some different mentors and positive influences in my life, because your environment is stronger than your willpower. Environment is always stronger than willpower. And so I needed that in my life. I needed that confidence booster and builder, and I needed some positive role models in my life. So I ended up having a lady by the name of Sue Urquhart, who was in Toastmasters at the time, another member. She believed more in me than I believed in myself. And she said, I believe that we could mentor Darrin Jacklin to become a world-class professional speaker. I thought, who are you qualified to say that? I don't even know who you are. Like I've spent very limited time in my life with this lady. And who are you to throw out these big words in your mouth to say that to me? And I was really confronted by that, because I thought, wow, those are some big words. But I realized that she was planting some seeds of possibility in my life. She saw what to me was a blind spot in my life. So I did go through the ranks of Toastmasters. And in 1995, I got a job as a telemarketer selling magazine subscriptions over the phone. I used to make 400 cold calls a day, 2,000 cold calls a week, selling magazines all across Canada, between 5 and 9 p.m. After 7 months, my boss came to me and said, Darrin, this is a dead-end job. You can't go any further selling magazine subscriptions. You've reached the top tier of the pay scale. We can't make any more phone calls in a day. I said, what do I do, Glenn? He says, you should go off on your own and build a corporate training business. I need the paycheck. I'm broke. I'm, struggling right now. I'm paycheck to paycheck. He goes, Darrin, trust me. He said, if you put in the hard work, the hustle, the grit, over time, it will pay off. So I took his advice. I gave my 2 weeks notice, even though I was scared. I had no cash reserves, no contingency plans. I just had to jump out of the nest and I was terrified. Well, there were some months I was 3, 4, 5 months behind on paying my rent and paying my bills, completely out of integrity because I couldn't keep my promises. And I ended up making over 100,000 cold calls between 1995 and the year 2000, calling businesses across Canada and the United States of America out of the telephone books. Now, sometimes my phone bills were thousands of dollars a month, and I was dialing for dollars with a lot of rejection. And, I was facing sometimes 98% rejection, 2% conversion rate, people that like math. So I was getting really, kicked the crap out of me, and I was stressed out, and I just persevered. And, that massive consistent action over a period of time allowed me to travel the world from 1995 to the year 2015. I personally traveled 50 countries on 4 continents. I trained and developed over 1 million people in live corporate training seminars with corporations and organizations and conferences all over the world. And I trained 157 of the Fortune 500 companies, some of the biggest corporations on the planet. I had a chance to get in there and get access to the decision makers and the executives and management and staff. And I'm very grateful for that. And a lot of rejection. It didn't happen. I didn't get yeses at the first time. Some of them were multiple no's until I got rejections. In fact, one company, a Fortune 500 company, it was 17 years of rejection, of no, before they finally said yes and wrote me a check to come in and do corporate training. So, no sometimes is today, but it's not permanent. It's just a sales funnel. And so in 2011, I decided, I was traveling the world 276 days a year, and I wanted to get onto paid advisory boards and paid boards of directors of public and private companies. So I wrote down on my journal, I have over 7,000 written goals, and I'm not here to brag, but I'm here to inspire other people that when you write your goals down on paper, I'm a great case study today that my life demonstrates with a lot of evidence and verifiable results by writing goals down and then creating some structure and some systems and processes, and then putting that into your calendar. Because if you don't schedule things in your calendar, it doesn't exist in your life. There's no evidence that it exists in your life. And so I've done this over and over and over and over again because success leaves clues. And today, it's quite amazing because, going from adversities and failures and challenges, I was once homeless. I once lived on the streets. I was on welfare. I ate my next meal at a garbage dumpster. I've had my car repossessed. I've had an R9 credit rating. So for people that are Canadians that are listening or watching, that's the worst possible case scenario you can get as a credit score, like a FICO score. It's the worst. Like, in fact, a Money Mart, a payday loan place won't even finance you. You're that high of a risk. Even a pawn shop won't even touch you. So I know what it's like to go from there to make millions of dollars. I've done both. I know what it's like to eat out of a garbage dumpster. I know what it's like to earn a lot of money. And so when I turned 38 years of age, I'm almost 51 now. When I turned 38, I was so sick and tired of being sick and tired of up and down. I had a confrontation in the mirror with myself. And I said, you know what? You got to get your money right. You're up and down like a yo-yo all the time. You're 38 years old. You got to get your money right. So I spent from age 38 to age 50 with massive action, traveling all the world, taking courses, mentors, coaches, mastermind programs to really learn about financial independence. And I've achieved a lot of financial success over the last 12, 13 years. And to me now, I've committed $100 million to Jen and I, $100 million through Link Foundation, which is our international foundation. It's a registered international foundation. We've committed $100 million for Global Philanthropy Projects. And so today, kind of the success story, I've had a chance to go to Nasdaq not once, not twice, but 3 times to ring the closing bell in New York City at Nasdaq. I've helped serve on the board of directors of a company that I helped grow from startup to a multi-billion-dollar company today with almost 100,000 people globally and in many countries and continents around the world. In fact, our first day of trading, we did over $1 billion in market cap. I have a portfolio of investments that I'm active and passive in, from real estate to various different asset classes that I'm involved with. And I'm very passionate about philanthropy and speaking. And then had a book that came out last year, this one here called Until I Become, that, went international, be an international best-selling book now. And so really my life today is about service to humanity and making a difference. And if I can overcome a lot of adversities and failures and challenges and setbacks, I have a roadmap that can guide and mentor other people. I'm almost 51 years of age. So to me, it's about legacy now and paying it forward and passing it on. And so that people don't have to go through all the adversities and failures and challenges and setbacks and financial pressures that I experienced in my life. And if you just focus on certain things in terms of daily habits and daily routines, and you consistently do this over a period of time, you can achieve whatever you want to achieve on your terms in your life. And to me, I want to live life on my own terms. I'm a terms guy. I like to go wherever I want, whenever I want, however I want, with whomever I want, but I make the decisions. And so that's what I like to do. And so I'm blessed to travel the world and live an abundant lifestyle today, and now building other companies, to build financial wealth even more, to give it away, because our success is someone else's miracle. And so, I love seeing people grow and succeed, but I'm very good at seeing people's blind spots and their BS, which is their belief system, because I was once that guy in the mirror that, just BS myself all the time, because I was so full of it and I was so out of integrity with my life. And so, I've learned some valuable principles and skills today that if you apply them consistently over a period of time, you can achieve massive success beyond your wildest imaginations. And the cool thing is, people that you put ahead of you or above you, or like I used to put on a pedestal, I'd put people on a pedestal, then put myself in the pit and minimize myself. Over time, you'll become equal to those people, and then you'll pass those people. And then those people will phone you or want to take you out for lunch or dinner or want you to serve on their advisory boards. And you're like, wow, this is weird. Like, this is a 180 turn. Like, these people I used to put on a pedestal, and now they're calling me and consulting with me and asking me to advise them. So, but you got to put in the hard work and the effort and the time and the thousands of hours and be able to ride the roller coaster of peaks and valleys at times, because it's not easy. But if you stay the course over a period of time, you can do extraordinary things, and lots of doors of opportunities open up for you.
No, I completely agree. And I love where that ended. That's recently happened more and more in my life. I've been part of an organization, and in 5 years, I've accomplished stuff that people before me, it took them 15, 20 years to accomplish.
Yeah.
Or they haven't even yet accomplished it yet. And I surpassed them and doubled what they were doing. And so it is interesting how when I first started, I was looking up to them and said, hey, they were training. It's almost like they know all the right things to do, but they have no action behind it. Or especially with the Zoom era of life, the world changed, and people who are younger and more prepared, they have a better opportunity in a lot of cases. And there's the older generation that reached a certain level of success that was possible through a more human-to-human connection, where when it went online, they just didn't understand how to pivot fast enough in those, what do they call those? Industries. So it's been fascinating to see that. So I want to go back though to a little bit more of your story. So how many children are in your family? Like, how are you the...
So with Link Foundation, so Tatiana, my wife, she was a high school teacher for 35 years, public school system. She's got 3 academic degrees. So we have over about 318 children right now from preschool to grade 6 with our first pilot school. And that's in one of the poorest countries in the world right now called Liberia, West Africa. And we chose that country because of the hardship and the obstacles that they had to do. So Link Foundation, which stands for LY2NK, Leaders Yielding to New Knowledge, is our acronym, but it's Link is how it's pronounced, Link Foundation. So it's a registered federal charity in Canada and the United States of America. And so right now, our first school is in Liberia, West Africa. Behind me are 2 of the children that are actually in our school right now. And we're going to finish off classrooms 7 through 12 this year, and also build a school playground. And we're in the exploratory discovery process right now in due diligence of looking at some other countries to actually build more schools. And the game plan over the next decade is $100 million deployed through Global Philanthropy. But the key thing is education, because these young children behind me live in very poor villages, and they're also targeted for human and child sex trafficking and organ harvesting. And so that's the big thing right now with human traffickers, is to traffic young children, and they go after their vital organs to repurpose and resell those vital organs. So we are protecting these kids, because when we met with the mothers in these villages on different humanitarian trips, the mothers sat with us around a campfire and said, if you can provide books and education, a book and education is the greatest enemy to a child predator or child trafficker. Because when you educate a child, you build confidence and self-esteem and education, and they can set boundaries and create situational awareness. So we are educating these young, vulnerable men and women with education, that no means no, and build confidence and belief in themselves, because they're the next generation. And Africa is an emerging marketplace. You'll say, why don't you do stuff in North America? There's a lot of churches and nonprofits and government organizations doing already a lot of great stuff. So we tend to go where places with Link Foundation where people are not aware of. We put the spotlight on these people to give them hope and dreams and possibilities and long-term economic development and sustainability.
I love that, because you started off first grade and end up in special ed.
Special ed, yeah.
Something you said here, you were misdiagnosed. Explain that to me.
Yeah, great question.
Were you misdiagnosed by the standards of the world, or do you just say, look, I'm smarter than what they said I was, so I was misdiagnosed? Like,
yeah,
give us some clarity there.
I guess humbly I could say I should have been in a gifted school program. I have a very high IQ, but I'm very nonlinear in my thinking. I didn't fit into the traditional public school system, but I was misdiagnosed from the school system because they didn't know what to do with me. I was one of these kids that was, very hyperactive, didn't want to sit in a classroom at a desk. I was very experiential and very practical. So like a Waldorf or a Montessori school would have been a great school for me. I was a kid that, I got in trouble all the time because they call it cheating, but to me in the real world, it's called collaboration. I'm like, because something when I share with people that I have over 7,000 written goals, and I show people sometimes when I'm speaking all my goals to give them ideas to write down on paper, I first of all share with people, I said, listen, all these goals right now, 7,000 goals could be overwhelming to you. To the majority of people, it's overwhelming. But here's the takeaway, which I talk about in my book, Until I Become, is I talk about that most of your goals and dreams don't require your actions. It's all about creating teams and teamwork. So when I was in public school, even when I had my Rent-A-Kid business, I'm finding kids in my neighborhood to work as a team so we can go out and solve problems in our community or neighborhood. And that's what the school system doesn't do, is they don't bring people together to collaborate and to create that environment of teamwork and work with the different personality styles and different skill sets and the kids' different strengths and weaknesses. And that's what I was really good at as a kid. I was very good at finding the kids in my class that could, come together as a team and collaborate and then solve problems and make a difference.
Yeah, and I think that's huge, because I think that a lot of people are misdiagnosed, not just by their school system, but even farther down in your story when you're talking about, I love this line you said, hey, the desks are only so big, right? Yes. It's time to graduate. And sometimes people don't get that in their life, and they sit in a job, they sit in a relationship. And I want to promote healthy relationships and strong marriages and all of that. And at the same time, I fully understand that some people are just not equally paired, and they probably should have never got married. And at some point, both people would be happier if they moved on and found somebody who was more in alignment with them. And so I'm not advocating divorce or not advocating divorce. I want strong families at the end of it. And I want people to be happy. But just that concept of the desks are only so big. At what point are you going to decide in your life that what you've been given, it's time to move on. It's time to graduate. It's not that it's a bad thing, but there's so much more out there for you if you're choosing to move on. And just because you're struggling, I say struggling, a D student in one environment, that doesn't mean that that's the measure of success. That's just one environment. And then the other thing you said was your environment is stronger than willpower. So it's like that environment kept you as a D student, whereas if you had been in one of these other types of schools or just had parents who said school's not necessary, why even worry about graduating, whether it's from a special ed school, a regular school, anything? Why even worry about it? Like, the best gift, seems to me at least, that you were ever given was the fact that you weren't qualified for college, right? You weren't dumb enough to go to college. That's a good thing.
Absolutely.
Like that opened you up to like, I'm going to go make my way some other way. And there's a lot of people who are smart enough to get into indoctrinating themselves in something that's not helpful. And then they get out of college, they've got their bachelor's, master's, PhD, and they're making $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year, wondering, well, when is it my turn to make enough to survive and then serve? And they never get that point because they're still sitting at a desk that's really too small for them.
For sure. And also, too, they're trading time for money, which we're taught in a lot of the school systems today. And I did that for a period of time in my life, and I still do. I have different projects I take on. But the key thing is to create multiple revenue streams of income. And so what I always do is I always say, when money comes in, you get a paycheck or it's directly deposited in your bank account, what do? Let's look at the evidence on your bank statement every month. And the first thing that people do, see, rich people don't work for money. They work to acquire income producing assets, right? So, I invest, people say, what do you spend money on? And I said, I'm always buying income producing assets. I'm buying income. Last year, we were in lockdown for COVID. I was buying companies. I was doing acquisitions with other people's money. I was borrowing money, going on to Zoom calls, WhatsApp, telephone calls, calling different people because everybody was at home. And I was assembling private money, pools of capital, liquid cash, and then going out and acquiring businesses and then rolling them up because it's easier to acquire revenue than to create revenue. Yeah. So a lot of times when I go speak at business conferences, people are like, well, I've got a startup company. I said, why don't you go out and raise money? Go out and raise a few $100,000, a few $1 million, and go out and acquire companies that are already in that space that have been around for a minimum of 5 years and have already got a balance sheet and cash flow and employees and paying customers and monthly recurring revenue, right? So because a startup is such a high risk business in the first couple of years, right, to get it off the ground, whereas a business already established with good cash flows coming in, you can grow and scale that by acquiring other businesses and rolling that up. But again, it takes a team of people to do that. You're going to have somebody who's a visionary like myself. Then you have people who are integrators that run the day-to-day operations of the structure, the systems, and the processes. And all it is changing your environment, get around people. So if people want to make more money, I used to hang out with 4 broke friends. I was the 5th. When I changed my 4 friends, my bank accounts changed. Same thing with my health. I'm climbing Mount Kilimanjaro in a few months this year. Well, 3 years ago, I could have never imagined myself. I was 40 pounds heavier. Never imagined I'd ever be climbing Mount Kilimanjaro at 19,340 feet. I couldn't go 45 minutes without being exhausted. I used to walk from the grocery store to the parking lot would be exhausted. That was a big, I was tired. But now I've got a lot more energy because I've consistently done that by scheduling dates and times on my calendar and going on multiple hikes and joining different hiking groups for accountability and responsibility. So whatever you really, really want in your life, you can. But sometimes you got to change your environment. You got to change your association of who you spend time with. You got to change from watching, cable television or Netflix to reading books and biographies and autobiographies and watching documentaries on successful men and women. If you want a better relationship, start modeling other people because success leaves clues. If you want to achieve more financial success, start taking millionaires and multimillionaires out for lunches or dinners. And people say, well, I don't know any millionaires, but they're all around or they're on the internet. Right? You just get into proximity. Right. Because proximity is power of where these people are. Because, we don't have money problems like we only have thinking problems. Everything you really, really want is going to come from having conversations with talking to strangers. But the thing is that all we are is a network of conversations. But we're taught in school, don't talk to strangers. We're taught at home by some of our parents and upbringing environment, don't talk to strangers. But here's the thing is strangers are everything you want, need, and desire in your life. Everything is going to come from having conversations with strangers. Yeah, I think if you can learn how to have a conversation with strangers. And one of the biggest things that changed for me, I will never forget where I was. It's probably, everybody has a few paradigm shifting moments in their life. And there's a lot of changes, right? Anybody who's growing, they're constantly changing. But I feel like there's a few that just really are so poignant in their life, deep emotional, right at the right time they hit. Yes. And for me, I remember I was in Utah driving on the road, about to turn left onto the street. I was a block away from my office and I was listening to the You Were Born Rich seminars by Bob Proctor, phenomenal program. The funny thing is, I know so many people, I'm like, hey, you got to listen to this, got to listen to it. They listen to it and they don't get anything from it. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know how you didn't get anything from that. It was life-changing, right? Yes. For me, it was life-changing. And there was I don't even know at what segment it was, but there was a part where it's like, look, you were born rich, you were born with a unique perspective, and you can add value, a valuable perspective. If nothing else, you can add a valuable perspective to everybody, because it doesn't matter if somebody's way ahead of you financially, morally, spiritually, anything, or way behind you. You have a unique perspective. And if you're willing to share your perspective, not throw it up on somebody, but listen, ask good questions, and then share your perspective, then there's value in that. And that, in my mind, equalized the playing field to where I feel like there's no thing that separates me from anybody else in the world. And the cool thing is it eliminated greed. It eliminated envy. It eliminated judgment, condemnation, thinking, hey, this person's better, this person's worse. It just put us all on the same level playing field, and just compassion
and how can we serve? How can we create together? And that's a major shift if you can just get to that point where everybody you view as equal and that you are also equal. You're not better or worse than anybody. I think the main thing is not feeling better than anybody. Once you get to that point, life is so much more enjoyable. And what's really cool is the people who have achieved, I would say, a greater amount of success in the world than not, most of them, once you can talk to them as a being and as a human rather than from an idealistic perspective, they're way more fun to talk to because they're like, okay, this guy's not trying to get anything from me other than just have a good conversation.
For sure. Absolutely. It's interesting you say the science of getting rich. About 5 hours ago, I was just driving back to Vancouver here from my other home. And I was listening to that program actually on Audible. And you just bring it up. This is like 5 hours ago. The other thing is too, is that one thing to realize is that, a lot of times with social media, people will reach out and they'll friend request somebody, and then they automatically start to pitch or sell their product or service or opportunity to someone. And what you do is you automatically repel people versus attract people because it's a transactional introduction versus a relationship introduction. The key thing is people are going to get to know you, like you, and trust you. And when they get to know you, like you, and trust you, then they'll buy your product or service or join your business or business opportunity. But so many people today, the reason why things are not working and they have the frustration and things are not going is because they're a transactional. They go to a networking event and they're walking around the room. And I used to do this as well, but I learned the hard way. And you're like, okay, who can I pitch and sell from? Who can I talk to? And then people feel like it's like a one night stand. Right? It feels so transactional. Whereas if you walk around with just a few people, 5 to 10 people out of a group of 100 people, and do a deep dive of building a relationship so you get to know more about that person, and then you cultivate that relationship. But it's hard when, you're a week away and you got to pay your rent or pay your car payment or bills are due. You're like, man, I don't have any money in the bank account. My credit cards are almost maxed out. And then I got to hustle and grind here. And I've been there, But the key thing is you've got to learn to have conversations with lots of people. One of the key things is your integrity. And, in my 20s and 30s, I was not an integral person. I was selective integrity. And I realized that I was not my word. I would say things, but I wouldn't follow through consistently on that. And so I became unreliable to people. And so I had a huge wake-up call in my late 30s when I started taking different training development programs on really what is integrity. And integrity, in fact, I have something I train my team on all the time. Actually, I'll read you something here. This is something I share with my team all the time.
Integrity is one of my core values, but I'm curious what your definition is. My definition is different than some people's, but sure. I'm curious what your definition is.
No, here's my definition, and I read it to my team all the time. Integrity: I do what I say I will do when I say I will do it in the expected way. And if I can't get it done, it's my responsibility to clean up my mess and fix whatever mess is there and set new conditions of satisfaction and by when dates. Right?
See, I love it. That's more specific than mine, which I like. Mine is, look, there's what I said I'm going to do. And I know that there's no way to always fulfill on that because there's too many contingencies. So if integrity is a perfect line of like, I'm always 100%, then because I know I can't live up to that just because there's too many other things, then my goal is to cross that line as frequently as possible. And if I'm not going to live up to my standard that I said, the thing I was going to say, then just like you said, you need to proactively let somebody know, hey, I'm not going to hit this. Don't let them find out the day before or the day of, right? I mean, this call's a good example. I could have just not shown up till 4:15 in my time. Or I could have got on, even though I'm driving, and said, hey, as soon as I could have called you or got a hold of you, I'm not going to make it. I need a few more minutes, right? Rather than just leaving you sitting there, man, did Sam stand me up? No, I'm busy. I'm working on getting there, but being there to let you know as soon as I could what was going on. I think that's an important part of like, yes, I was late. Things happened the way they did, but having the integrity and being clear about expectations, I think is really crucial.
Absolutely. Yeah. And always over communicate. People that are in my network, I'm always over communicating by text or by telephone or by email. And it's something I learned, one of the companies I'm involved with as an investor and involved with it, we raised a bunch of money here not too long ago. And we were over communicating to our investors. And I had a couple of investors call and say, Darrin, listen, you need to dial this back. Like this is too much. Like you're giving me too many reports and updates. And great, I got your attention. So we have a CRM system where we have a contact management. So I said to him, I said, great, you don't want weekly reports. Would you like to have monthly, quarterly, semi-annually, or yearly? And like, you know what, give me quarterly, 4 updates a year. So we put the notes in the CRM. Now, the key thing is these investors are like, wow, I love being around Darrin Jacklin. Why? Because he over communicates, because there's 3 types of money. There's calm money, cautious money, and nervous money. And I always think about, you know, buddy calls you up and says, hey, can I borrow $50? You're like, am I calm? Am I cautious? Am I nervous? Right? Somebody calls you up about some cryptocurrency deal. Am I calm, cautious, or nervous? Whether I want to get involved with this. So the key thing is we got this person's attention, these different investors. Now I know that every quarter they want updates. So what we're doing is we're managing the expectations and the integrity of their relationship. But a lot of times people under communicate, and then people are like, oh my gosh, I invested in this opportunity, or I'm getting involved with this person. I just started dating this person, and I never hear from them. And then all of a sudden the negative self-talk or the mind chatter kicks in our brain, right? So that's the key thing is that, you know, you and I can meet 20 times, and 19 of the 20 times I'm on time. But the one time I'm late, I'm forgiven. Why? Because I have a consistent history and experience and track record of always being on time. In fact, to me, early is on time and on time is late. I have an iPhone. And what I do is I live my life by my calendar. And then every day with my calendar, I then set alarms on my iPhone. So I'm always on time. My alarms go off so I can always pivot and have transition plan time. Right? So that's the key thing, is because our word creates our world. And if people really realize that what you say out of your mouth, your words create your world. And in fact, a lot of people say, you know, talk is cheap in business. I think that most people cheapen their talk because their words have no power.
Right. That's a good phrase right there. You better rewind that and listen to that one again. I want to touch on a few things, and we're going to run out of time, which is terrible. But Dale Carnegie, okay, that book, How to Influence and Influence People, I can't think I have like top 5 books in my life that have really been impactful. That is one of them. I read that because I was homeschooled. So we didn't get to go to the special school. We were just homeschooled. And about 11 years old, I was kind of done doing homework because I was like, this is stupid. I'd rather go make money. And so I went and made money. But the How to Influence People 12-week program, we went through that as a family and as a homeschool group.
Wow.
And that changed my life. I've read that book, I think outside of my religious books, like my scriptures, that's the book that I've read more than any other book in my life. And Think and Grow Rich is coming up on it, right? Yes. I'm starting to read that one more, but those books, there's just nothing in those books that is not pure gold. And the ability to connect with anybody, when you understand what people want. And this is something I wrote down about the person who first believed in you, right? Mm-hmm. And they start speaking life into you at Toastmasters, and you're like a little resistant. It's interesting. And if you're listening to this, think about this. When somebody walks up to you and gives you a big compliment or speaks life into you, what's your reaction? So many people, they think that humility is putting themselves down. And so when somebody speaks life into them, they say, oh, don't. The note I wrote down was, hey, don't give me a good name. And the reason I said that is because in Dale Carnegie's book, he says, give a dog a good name. Well, same thing here. When other people give you a good name, are you resistant to that? Or are you like, you know what? I can live up to that. I'm excited to fulfill that. I'm excited to become what you see in me. Because he's had the opposite. Darrin had the opposite of that earlier when his teachers, his mentors, the people who looked up to him didn't believe in him and said, hey, look, you got to go do something else because you're never going to accomplish your goals. You're never going to accomplish your dreams. So and that led him to suicide. So when you look at the contrast of that, even though he was being given a good name, he was uncomfortable with the good name because he had already built a decade or more of an identity of not a good name. And so sometimes when people are giving you a good name, whether it's Darrin or myself or somebody, we talk to you and we're telling you about the great things that we see in you, accept it and start to analyze, hey, where does that show up? Explain to me where you picked that up from meeting me, right? So that you can get to know yourself a little bit better, because that's huge, is giving yourself a good name. And then, to think about not only that experience, but then going into becoming the best at the sales organization and then say, hey, look, you've capped out here. Again, the desks are only so big here. You need to go find a bigger desk. And when they're like, no, how different was that experience? One led to suicide attempts. The other led to traveling the world and multiple hundreds of millions of dollars worth of philanthropy. The difference of a few words when somebody told them the desk was too big or too small, rather, and you needed to go find a bigger desk. So that's huge. And then the other thing, talk to me about this one, because I just think it's a great illustration. I'm sure there was more things that were involved in this, but you mentioned, some weeks or days or months, your phone bill was thousands of dollars. Just think about going back there. How crazy is it that the advance of technology, and how much easier is it now to find a way to be successful than it was when you started?
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's so much easier because, we had a telephone book and residential phone calls. Like I would call from one city, I could call a half an hour away and it was a long distance phone call. You might remember, people living they have relatives in another country. They might be in North America, but their family's over in Europe or Asia or Australia. And, this month our family would do the phone call. Next month, your family would do the phone call, and it was very, very expensive each month. Right. And people didn't realize that today with technology, it's actually so much easier to network and prospect and follow up and track things. I used to use recipe cards, like, the recipe cards, the 305 index cards. I'd meet somebody at a networking event or a trade show, take their business card, and then write down notes in a little recipe 305 index card, and then file them, handwrite them all out. In fact, I still to this day write handwritten thank you cards and mail them. Still the old way. But for people to receive in their mailbox at their home or their office a handwritten card, all the books with until they come, I still handwrite, in the books and be like, wow, it's that personal touch of building that relationship equity where people get to know you and like you and trust you and build that rapport with people. And that's the key thing. It's the little things that make such a big difference. Even when you go someplace, like every time I go into a restaurant and I sit down or I go to a hotel and check in, I always ask the server or the hotel staff or the staff member there, what is your name? Even if they have a name badge on, what is your name? Well, my name is Amy. What's your name? Amy. And just for them to say their name out loud, like, wow, this person's asking me who I am. I matter to that person.
That's incredible. I like that thing. I'll have to start doing that, asking people what their name is. But yeah, it's so crazy. The idea of thousands of dollars to call somebody and it was still worth it and people were still doing it. And now sometimes people, you ask them to get in business for themselves and it might take them 500 on the low side to, $1 million on the high side. Yeah. And they just won't do it. They're just like, nah, it's too risky or whatever. And it's like, man, if you only knew how worth it was to grind a little bit, to figure it out and stick through it when it gets hard, then you get to travel the world and be a philanthropist and bless people's lives.
Barclays Bank, for example, many years ago, back in 2007, I had an opportunity to meet with the vice president of Barclays Bank in London, England. I didn't have the money for the airfare and the hotel to get there. So I called a friend of mine up, borrowed his credit card. He paid for my airfare. I flew from Canada all the way over to London, England for a 15-minute meeting at a Starbucks near the Barclays headquarters office. The guy gave me 15 minutes, ended up being a 22-minute meeting. So I flew continent to continent, took 24 hours of travel time, met with the guy for 22 minutes, then flew back. 7 months later, I got a fax in the old fax machines, a fax. They brought me in and paid me $10,000 to come in and do corporate training 7 months later, right? But the thing was that here I flew from continent to continent. I've flown from Vancouver to New York City multiple times. I've flown to Chicago, San Francisco for a 1-hour lunch meeting. People think you're crazy. Flying from Vancouver, Canada to New York City for a 1-hour lunch meeting with a decision maker? Yeah, because I'm the only one that's pitching that person or presenting that person that's going to do it out of all my other competitors. Everybody's going to be sending emails and proposals, and I'm going to get on a plane and fly there in person and meet that person, shake that person's hand, spend a great lunch or dinner with that person, and show that I'm serious. I've got some skin in the game. I'm willing to pay for a flight all across North America to meet with you because you're important to me. And so that's the key thing is, how do you separate yourself from everybody else? You do things a little bit differently.
Mm-hmm. No, you're exactly right. Well, we are out of time. I'm so sad. But thank you so much. And
grateful to be here.
Where can people get involved with your Link 2 Foundation? If somebody wanted to learn more about it, participate, maybe go help out in Africa
sure.
if there's service opportunities.
Absolutely. we've got something happening right now where I'm passionate about hiking because there's so many health benefits to hiking. So if people want to learn about what we're doing with hiking, if you want to get your family out, your kids out, your coworkers or a date or yourself, go to hikingfundraiser.com. That's hikingfundraiser.com. All the information on Link Foundation's there, what we're doing at our school. But come out and hike with us across North America. We have all these different things called E2E, which is Elevate to Educate at hikingfundraiser.com. And you can come out and hike with us, and all the financial proceeds that we raise go towards building schools for some of the poorest children on the planet at hikingfundraiser.com.
I love it. Well, hey, thank you so much for your time. And for those of you who are interested in reaching out to him, please just click the links in the bio. Go and learn more about Sir Darrin Jacklin. And mostly, hopefully you're learning more about yourself as he guides you through learning more about yourself. So we'll catch you guys next time on the Fuel Your Legacy Show.
Thanks for joining us. If what you heard today resonates with you, please like, comment, and share on social media. Tag me. And if you do give me a shout out, I'll give you a shout out on the next episode. Thanks to all of those who've left a review. It helps spread the message of what it takes to build a legacy that lasts. And we'll catch you next time on Fuel Your Legacy.